morning from the Babble Boys podcast. How you doing today, James?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing pretty good. So we got some breaking news that came out yesterday. It was a very conveniently leaked body cam footage for the George Floyd incident, which if you haven't heard about the George Floyd incident, you've been living under a rock.
Or in Joe Biden's basement.
Or in Joe Biden's basement. Speaking of Joe Biden, that's another thing we'll cover today. Why don't people want Joe Biden to debate? I feel like that's an important debate. You know, that's the president of the United States, the most powerful man in the world, arguably.
I agree.
Don't want to debate? It's like that's a little bit of an issue. And then we've had civil unrest going on for a little over about 65 days now. And we got some strange demands coming out from some local Black Lives Matter activists and even some teachers out of the state of California. It's definitely an evolving movement and
Sure.
demands. But this George Floyd case that was just leaked, let's go ahead and share that just in case you haven't had a chance to take a look at that yet.
This is it, huh?
This is it.
Let me see.
Start from the beginning. All right. Contains graphic images, as we all seen.
Let me see your hands.
Damn, man.
Stay in the car. Let me see your other hand.
I'm sorry.
Let me see your other hand.
Please,
Both hands.
do nothing.
Put your
Oh,
hands up
already
right
got a gun
now.
out.
Let me see your other hand.
What I do though? What we do?
Put your hand up there. Put your hand up there. Hands on the wheel. Hands on the wheel.
I'm sorry, brother.
Who else is in the car?
This is my
Put your foot back in.
I'm so sorry.
He was clearly scared.
Dang, man.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, I'd be scared if I had a gun pointed at me too.
Okay, well, when I say let me see your hands, you put your hands up.
I'm so sorry, brother.
You got them?
Man, dang, man.
Put your hands on top of your head.
Last time I got shot like that, I was
Hands on top of your head. Hands on top of your head. Step out of the vehicle and step away from me, all right? Step out and face away. Step out and face away.
Please don't shoot me. Please, man.
I'm not going to shoot you. Step out and face away.
I'm looking out of eye, man. Please don't shoot me, man. Please, man. I just lost my mom, man.
Step out and face away.
So he just lost his mom, but there was also some reports, that he was also high on drugs. Do you think that this could be a radical behavior from that? Or do you think it's just because he's scared he has a gun pointed at him?
Well, yeah. I mean, the coroner's report came back that he had multiple drugs in his system, but I mean, he's clearly very scared, and I, can't say that I wouldn't be scared with a gun on my face. But if there was a gun on my face, I mean, I would probably listen to what the officer was saying to ensure that I was not shot.
And if I was on drugs, I'd probably be extra scared. I mean, obviously depending on the drugs, but it's also important. I mean, the coroner's report said he had drugs in his system, but that doesn't necessarily mean that he was high on drugs at this moment either.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Step out and face away.
Please don't shoot me, Mr. Officer. Please don't shoot me, man.
Step out and face away.
You're not shooting me, man.
I'm not shooting you. Step out and face away.
Okay. Please, man. Please. I didn't know, man.
Get out of the car.
I didn't know, Mr. Officer. I didn't know. Stop resisting.
Right now.
We hear somebody saying stop resisting.
Stop moving. Put your hands behind your back then. I'm not going to do nothing. Face in the door.
Get his Overhaul.
Hey, you come back. Stay in the car. Stop resisting, man. Yes, you are.
Do you see any clear signs of resisting arrest so far? Because we hear it a lot.
Well, yeah. I mean, he's obviously trying to not go to jail.
I mean, he's a very large man. Maybe they could have twisted just his strength with resisting. I'm not sure, but we hear it a lot.
Yeah.
Stand up. Against the wall. Yes.
What I do?
We're figuring out what's going on. Drop the bag.
Figure out what's going on.
Adam,
What's the problem?
Said something to him. It ain't us.
we was getting a ride,
I
sir.
just got my phone fixed. It's my ex-man.
Adam knows me.
That's my ex.
Are you good?
He keep telling me, get my car.
That's it, man.
No, they
You
not
can ask
Floyd.
Get ID?
Floyd in jail.
You can ask Mr. Adam about me.
You have ID?
I'm on 38 years old.
Man.
320 or 44.
You can ask Mr. Adam about me, sir. I just came to buy the tablet, and when I bought the tablet, it didn't
Oh
work.
my God. He didn't even do nothing.
Here you go, sir.
You have ID?
No, I don't. My
You got
name's
anything with your
Shawan
name on it?
Hill. No.
Sir.
Okay.
I just came over to get my phone to see I don't have a purse or nothing.
Mr. Adam
And my
knows
daughter
me,
is on her
man.
way to get me.
What's the deal?
I don't
Mr. Adam
know.
knows me, sir.
That's my ex. I don't know.
Why is he getting all squirrely and not showing us who he is and just being all weird like that?
Because he's been shot before. He don't
Well, I
wanna-
get that, but still, when officers take it out of the car,
Things going
is he
on.
drunk? Is he on something?
Oh, he got a thing going on. I'm telling you
What
about
does
the
that mean?
police. We have problems all the time when they come, especially when that man took that gun like that. It's been one.
So George Floyd's been shot. The lady here, I don't want to butcher her name. She says that he's been shot and he does have some mental issues, especially when there's a gun being pointed at you. But I don't think that that's irrational. I think many people would act that way if there's a gun pointed at them.
Yeah, I agree.
There's anything irrational.
What's your first name?
He's pretty good. George Floyd.
What is it?
He's a good guy. George Floyd, she said. Ouchie,
What
man.
are you on something right
I'm
now?
not nothing.
You acting erratic. Let's go.
Yeah, man.
Let's go.
Yeah, man. Yes. Yes, I was just moving earlier.
Let's go.
Man, all right, let me calm down now. It's feeling better now.
Keep walking.
Okay, now, do me one favor, man.
No, let me get to the car. Let's get to the car, man. Come on.
Hey, man. Oh, man. God, don't leave me, man. Please, man, don't leave me, man.
Here. I want to watch that car too, so you get a miss.
Stop falling down. Stay on your feet and face the car door.
You get a search on him?
Please, can I talk to you, man? I don't want to talk to you,
No.
man. Please, let me talk to you, please.
You ain't listening to nothing we're saying, so we're not going to listen to nothing you're saying.
Can you watch that car? Just make sure no one goes in it.
I hear you, but you are going to face the door right now.
Listen up. Stop.
I'll do anything. I'll do anything y'all tell me to do, man. I'm not a resistor, man. I'm not. You can ask him. He know me here
Check
now.
that side.
God, man, I'm going to do nothing like that, y'all. Why is it going on like this? Look at my wrist, Mr. Officer. I'm not that kind of guy.
The other side.
Mr. Officer, I'm not that kind of guy.
Stop.
Please. I'm not that kind of guy, Mr. Officer. Please.
Space away.
Please, man. Don't leave me by myself, man. Please. I'm just claustrophobic. That's it.
So that goes back to the original story that he didn't want to get in the police cruiser because he's claustrophobic. So he's putting up a little bit of resistance to get in there, but claustrophobic, maybe. I'm not.
Well, I mean, the guy's not allowing them to arrest him.
No,
Correct?
he's not.
I mean, he is resisting his arrest.
Yeah, and I mean, claustrophobic or not, you're still going to get in that police cruiser, if you're being arrested.
Yeah,
I'll go
I mean,
in the
either
car.
you're going in the police cruiser or you're going in the ambulance.
It's. I mean, I'm not saying that everything's fair, but you're going where you're going regardless, one way or the other. That's just the nature of the beast.
Anything sharp on you?
I won't do nothing to hurt y'all, Mr. Officer. No, sir. Why? Nothing. I have nothing. Why y'all doing me like that, Mr. Officer? Please crack it wounded for me and stuff, man. I am claustrophobic for real, Mr. Officer.
You got him?
Could you please crack it for me? Please.
Yes, I'll
Remember my
crack
name.
it.
Stay
I
with me,
will.
man.
I will.
Please stay with me, man. Thank you. God, man. I didn't know I was going to do that.
He's being respectful at minimum, but I mean, obviously he is, doesn't want to get in there. But
Yeah, I mean, he's not violently resisting. He's
He's-
not attacking.
mm-mm.
He's just, pleading.
Yeah.
To not be arrested.
And
Unfortunately, that's not how it works.
And I'm sure that police officers deal with people pleading to not be
Oh,
arrested every time.
every day, I'm sure.
Every day, every time. I mean, so it's something that they're used to, and I'm sure it's just like, come on, man, I understand.
Please, man. I just want my hands free. I don't want none of y'all, man. Nothing.
You got it inside in your pocket real quick on your shirt?
I'm listening. And I understand that people do stuff. And
All right, he's good. This guns, whatever. There's nothing
Okay.
Grab a seat.
Okay. Having trouble walking.
I'll roll the windows down, okay?
Please, man. Please don't do Take a seat. I'm going in, Mr. Officer. I'm going in. No, you're not. I gotta go in. Take a seat.
Grab a seat, man.
Why y'all don't believe me, Mr. Officer?
Take a seat.
I'm not that kind of guy. I'm not that kind of guy, man.
Take a seat.
Y'all, I'm gonna die here.
Take a seat.
I'm gonna die, man.
You need to take a seat right now.
And I just had COVID, man. I don't want to go back to that.
Okay, I'll roll the windows down. Hey, listen.
Dang, man.
Listen.
I'm not that kind of guy.
I'll roll the windows down as
Please,
you pull your
man.
legs in, all right? I'll
Y'all
put the air on.
God, look at that. Look at that.
Not even listening.
Look at it. Look at it.
We can fix it, but not while you're standing out
Okay,
here.
man. God, y'all do me bad, man. Man, I don't want to try to win. I don't want to try to win. I don't want to win. I'm claustrophobic. I'm claustrophobic. I got anxiety. I don't want to do nothing to
I'll
them.
roll the window down.
Man, I'm scared. When I start breathing, it's gonna go up on me, man.
Pull your legs in.
Okay.
So he's already talking about how he can't breathe, right?
Yeah.
I mean, just from looking at it, I mean, he is being a little bit erratic, but I mean, there's a lot of factors. Maybe he really is claustrophobic. I mean, he did just have a gun pointed at him.
Okay, let me count to 3. Let me count to 3 and I'm going in. Please.
Count to
Please,
3.
I'm not trying to win. I'm not trying to win. I get on the ground, anything. I can't
Get in
stand
the car.
this, man. He know it.
Yes, you get in this car with your talk.
I'm claustrophobic.
I'm hearing you, but you're not working with me.
God, I'm claustrophobic, man.
Slide your butt over here. I'm going to pull you in.
Get in the car.
In the front?
No, you're not getting in the
I'm
front.
claustrophobic, so
Get in the car.
Okay, man, okay. I'm not a bad guy, man.
Get in the car.
I'm not a bad guy. Man. Please, please.
Take a seat.
Please, man. Please. No.
Take a seat.
I can't choke. I can't breathe, officer. Please.
Fine.
My wrist, man. My wrist, man, please. I can't take this, man. I can't. I'm gonna lay on the ground. I'm gonna lay on the ground.
Get in the squad.
I'm gonna lay on the ground. I'm going down.
Get in the squad.
I'm going down. I'm not going to breathe. I know I can't breathe.
Talk to the front. Get to my oxygen vest.
I'll take COVID, man.
That was a lot to take in right there.
Well, I mean, the real question, does that video throw holes in the original theories, the original, reasons for the protests? I mean, from that video, I mean, it doesn't diminish the fact that the guy knelt on his neck for
No.
an extended period of time, which I'm sure, from what I've read of the coroner's report, the knee on the neck was not a factor in his death.
Well, that was the state's report though. But they had a private report which said that did cause the death. So they're a little bit conflicting with each other.
And I can't see how it
didn't.
Yeah, how it wouldn't be a factor. I mean, if someone knelt on my neck for 8 minutes, I mean, you're definitely at a loss of oxygen at that point. I mean, I don't think you can refute that.
No. And I mean, and then you have to ask other questions too. All right, was he being erratic to the point where he needed to be restrained? Maybe. I mean, that's a personal opinion. But I mean, kneeling on somebody's neck, I mean, that's also, I mean, that is a police procedure, especially in Minneapolis. I've read it. It says that you can apply light to moderate pressure on the neck to restrain somebody. So the question is, I mean, I don't think that it was light or moderate pressure by any means, especially for 8 minutes. It's a prolonged period of time. At what point in time does that police precinct's rules come into play with George Floyd's death?
Agreed. Yeah, and so we watched it. He wouldn't go in the back seat.
Wouldn't do it. Couldn't breathe
He
already.
he couldn't breathe. His wrist was hurt.
Yeah.
He said he broke his nose, I think, it's at one point.
Said he already had the COVID, which we know he did.
And he said he wanted to be put on the ground.
Yes, and he was put on the
And
ground.
that's where they put him.
All right.
Man,
I think it's hard because I mean it's very unfortunate what happened.
it is extremely unfortunate. But so, you know, not to diminish that the guy was murdered, but what should they have done? But okay, so back up to putting him in the back seat. What should they have done differently?
I mean, I guess. I mean, what are you going to tranquilize the man?
Tase him? I mean, what?
I mean, what?
I mean, I've seen videos. If you don't get in the back seat, I've seen cops beat people.
Yeah,
they will beat you repeatedly to get you in that back seat.
Well, I don't know if you remember our senior week. I was forced in the back of a paddy wagon. You know?
Yeah, you were slammed a couple times.
They 1, 2, 3 swinged me in the back of that thing.
Yeah, I remember that.
You know, so it's tough. It's tough.
Yeah.
He shouldn't have died, but what do you do? I mean, do you call for medical experts to come and tranquilize this man? Or I mean, I don't know. I do know that I think that them pulling that gun on him right away was a little premature. I do believe that set a bad stage from the get-go.
Yeah, I mean, if you know,
especially if a man is like they claimed he's you know, being chaotic, being, you know, like he's on something. I feel like you would want to try to de-escalate the system, the situation from the get-go.
Yeah.
Not automatically just start flashing your piece, you know.
Yeah, and I would like to know why they walked up with a gun. Well, I guess they didn't. So in the beginning, it didn't look like he had the gun out until he walked up, and I guess saw the way George Floyd was reacting. I'm not really sure what made him draw.
Mind.
Yeah, what you know, I don't know. But yeah, as soon as that gun came out, I mean, it just all went downhill pretty quick.
It did. That's at least the way I looked at it when I was watching it. I saw that gun and I seen how things automatically started to change, and I mean that's not nothing to not be expected. Like if you put a gun on me, I'm probably going to start, you know, getting shaky, and I mean, but I'm most certainly not in a power position at that point in time, and I feel as though I am going to listen to every command you give me because I do not want to be shot dead.
Agreed.
You know, I mean that's you're no longer in the power position.
No.
You have a gun on you. So but did they know it was George Floyd when they were walking up? Because George Floyd, I paid $1 to get his criminal record. It's 11 pages long.
Oh yeah, he wasn't a saint, that's for sure.
No, and I mean but still, I mean that's not. I mean, I don't want anybody to twist my words here. That is still not an excuse to die.
No.
But I mean, this is just. I mean, that's a lot of questions on a lot of what ifs. What could have been done differently?
Well, the two standing against the wall said that they knew Adam. Adam knew them.
Yeah.
Isn't Adam the one that knelt on his neck? Adam Chauvin, I believe his name is.
Yeah. I mean, well, they also knew each other too. I mean, they worked at a nightclub together. So, I mean, I still don't think you can get premeditation out of that. But I mean, that's the question: is did he mean to kill him? And I'm not convinced that he meant to kill him, but I guess I'm not convinced that he didn't either.
I don't think that he meant that it was premeditated. No,
I mean, I don't think it was premeditated in that aspect. And that just leads me, he's not a saint. He's not. I mean,
No.
obviously, you still. I mean, all life is important still, whether you're a saint or not. I mean, unless you're a pedophile, then your life's not important. But so he's not a saint. He's not some martyr, for the cause. It's tragic and it happens, but that's the whole thing. Like, so they're going around and they have like a traveling memorial to George Floyd, right?
I saw that. Yeah.
But we're tearing down statues now that we find disturbing, whether it's Christopher Columbus. And, I got a whole degree in history. We can shoot the shit on history, but we'll stick to the point. Do you think that the woman that George Floyd put a gun to in her gut and robbed her at gunpoint wants to be reminded of him from a memorial? Big paintings of him?
Well, no, but George Floyd's a martyr. He supposedly died for a cause, and that cause is way more important than any of his victims.
Oh, for sure.
The victims don't matter at that point.
No.
He serves a much larger purpose, which begs the question: now that this footage has been released, do you think a jury is still going to indict the officers? Now, what if they walk? Then what happens?
If they walk now? In my personal opinion, I think that the other officers, they had been on the job for just a few days. They were still in training. I don't believe that they're responsible for this. I believe they were taking orders from the veteran officer, and I don't believe that they're at fault. Just like, in the Army, when we're in the Army, your commanding officer is the one giving you the orders, and you executing them is your job.
Indeed.
So but that's the American system question. Is he going to be able to get a fair trial?
I think they're going to have to go outside of Minneapolis.
They're gonna have to go somewhere far, because I mean, if even if it's in there and let's say the jurors say not guilty for whatever reason, do they now have to fear for their lives?
That's a good question.
So
That's
I mean, like,
question.
I'm not sure if and if he's not going to get a fair trial, that goes against all American values at that point in time.
Yeah, a politicized trial would be a politicized indictment would be set a dangerous precedent right there.
That's very, very, very dangerous. I mean, the job of the jurors is to sit there, listen to all the evidence, and it has to be without reasonable doubt that he did this in whichever way they're charging him. Like premeditated, as a juror, based off of what I've seen so far, I would not indict him as a premeditated first-degree murder charge. But I mean, I'd have to see all the other evidence and the arguments from each side to be able to form an American opinion based off of how our judicial system works. Which does bring into the point that obviously we know that African Americans are disproportionately given longer sentences and such in the judicial system. I mean, that's a real real thing. Yeah. That's a fact. So I mean, we have to take in that the judicial system is not perfect as it is, but a politicized ruling that's nothing I want in my country.
No. Yeah, no, that's not good. But I mean, if you have to look at the footage with an unbiased view, you can't just. No matter what side of the spectrum you're on, I mean, you have to view it from the officer and view it from George Floyd. What could they all have done differently? And does that lead you to think that George Floyd was purposely murdered?
Right. And again, you have to take into account Minneapolis's police precincts, their own policies, like putting the knee on the neck. If you're going to say we need to ban all knees on the neck, that's not a logical request, because if you're an officer and you're in a fight for your life, I don't care what the rules say. I want to go home. I'm not saying that was a fight for the officer's life, because it wasn't. But I mean, you got to be careful. You got to look at things from a lot of different angles. You can't just be like, if I don't see what it is, in my opinion, is believing one way because of social media has become fashionable. It's become popular. Like, and if you don't believe that way, like you're not right.
Well, you're canceled.
You're cancel culture. It's not. It's gross. It's gross. I mean, people are getting canceled for the littlest things.
Yeah, I mean, there's no discourse anymore. Either you agree or you're hounded.
Yeah, I mean,
They come after you.
I mean, what Nick Cannon said, whites and Jews, he went after everybody, said they're lesser. He believes in that whole ancient theory that the white man was invented in a cave, and he's lesser. And granted, he was canceled, but Fox didn't cancel him. And I mean, at some point in time, you have to be like, people have opinions, and so as long as they don't act on them, like if somebody doesn't like me for my skin color, at the end of the day, I really don't care. I'm not saying it's right, but I'm just saying, like, if they're not like actively taking my liberties away because of my skin color, then you're just an idiot. You can believe what you want. I'm not gonna say
no, agreed. Yeah, and I've had people make racist remarks to me, and it's
uncomfortable.
It's uncomfortable, but say whatever you want. I don't really care.
I mean, anything. I mean, like women. People make derogatory, sexist comments about women. Like nobody's safe.
No.
Muslims in the Middle East, they get it too, especially after 9/11. Nobody is
for sure
safe. Nobody's safe. I mean, anti-Semitism is still a thing.
Yeah, I mean, every group in the country has some kind of prejudice. I mean, it's unavoidable. It's never going to be cut and dry as no racism or racism. There's always going to be somewhere in between. People are always going to be racist towards someone else. I mean, that's just, it's been like that since the beginning of time.
Yeah, and I mean, and stereotypes exist, like, oh, white people can't dance, or, or just anything, they're just there. And, sometimes the best thing you can do about some of these things is to just make jokes, like to laugh about it, like I have, friends of all different colors, races, religions, like in the military. You're in the military. Everybody just jokes around with each other, and but everybody's still, at the end of the day, they're family.
Yep.
It's
and it's a uniting factor.
Right.
You all wear the same uniform. You're all doing the same thing.
Yep.
It doesn't matter, what your race is. You're all still the same. You're all still the same. At the end of the day, you're all still a soldier.
Yeah. And that's right. And that's why, like, I just look around and it makes me sick, like if you don't conform to this view, then you don't belong to this group. And that's just stupid.
Well, I mean, that's the trend, right? That's the path that we're headed down. I mean, but then again, it gets into, is that the majority? And I keep hearing that there's a silent majority that overrules the fashion of being a left winger at the moment. And I don't know that that's true.
Well, look at the popular
I haven't seen it.
2016.
Yeah.
There was no conservative majority, and when we say silent majority, we are referring to the conservative side of the spectrum, because that's been their nickname for a long time.
Yeah.
They lost the popular vote in 2016, so that's not a majority.
I agree.
2020 is going to be a real interesting election. I'm voting Joe personally, not Biden, but Jorgensen. I just feel like, in America, we got the short end of the stick with the two big parties, and who we can elect out of them.
Well, yeah. I mean, until there's more competition, you're looking at. I mean, think of it as two giant corporations that you have to purchase from.
They are two giant corporations. I mean, back in the 90s, the Democrats adopted the Republicans' economic policies. They're literally the same thing. They just have different corporate sponsors. That's all it is. Obviously, we know the traditional fossil fuels in the right wing, but we have, the more green fuels as lobbyists for the left wings. I mean, it's the same thing, just with a different sheet of different clothes on. That's all it is.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's it's two different sides of the exact same coin.
It is.
They both,
They both cause debt. They both go to wars. They both.
Yeah.
I mean, little tiny societal and things that are different. Like, we're going to listen to this debate, and we're going to hear the presidential promise, the great presidential promise. Well, I'm going to give you Medicare for all, but you can't. Like, that's not within your job description. Like, it's not in your responsibilities. It's not in your power. You cannot do that. You're just making a fake promise. Stop doing that.
Yeah, no, I agreed. I mean, if you look at what the Democrats say they want to do, and then you look at what they actually do, I mean, it's two drastically different things.
The Republicans too. Donald Trump. I'm going to build a wall. Mexico's going to pay for it. Right from the get go, you should have known
Yeah.
that's wishing.
Hmm.
It's wishing.
Well, and to Trump's benefit, he did say that he wanted to end foreign wars,
Yes.
and he has tried, and where
Yes.
we have seen that he has been curtailed every time in many different ways. Democrats, Republicans, they're not interested. They're not interested in ending any kind of conflicts.
Which is just crazy. I mean, at some point in time here within the next decade, we're probably still going to be in a conflict. I mean, we've been at war for the majority of our country's history. Most of my life, most of your life. I mean, I fought in the war, and I'm almost 30 years old, and we're still there. Osama bin Laden's been dead for almost 10 years.
10 years, yeah.
Still there.
Still there, yeah.
Nation building.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that you could give me a good enough reason that we are still there.
Well, yeah. And then when you listen to, like, if you ever listen to Jocko, which I know you do, Jocko talks about, reasons why we should go there and annihilate them. And they're valid. They're great. But, I mean, at the end of the day, ISIS wouldn't be ISIS if we didn't topple Saddam Hussein.
Yeah. Well, I mean, hindsight's always 20/20, but at the same time, I don't think either of the wars were warranted. But I mean, we've been saying that with every war we've ever been in, have we not?
I think since World War II, I mean, you got Vietnam, you got Korea. I mean, those are both to stop the spread of communism, which is another good point. That leads us to our the next topic. You sent to me about the Black Lives Matter activists and their demands on businesses and gentrification. Are we in a third red wave scare of communism right now?
I don't know, the Black Lives Mafia, so it would seem. So demanding, I want to pull up the demands here. I think I have them.
Yeah, they were like a certain ethnic breakdown of jobs, and I mean, it's not realistic. But let's take a look at that.
Okay, so some of the demands requested by Black Lives Matter protesters included that Nulu businesses adequately represent Louisville's black population by having a minimum of 23% black staff, purchasing a minimum of 23% inventory from black retailers, or donating 1.5% of net sales to a local black nonprofit or organization, and requiring diversity and inclusion training for all staff members on a biannual basis.
What does that sound like to you?
I mean, that sounds like a shakedown.
It does. At that point in time, you're not even hiring based off best qualifications. You're hiring based off skin color, which is by definition like racism, I mean, like, yeah. So, like, if I'm going to say I'm going to hire them just because they're white, that is not okay.
No, that's not okay.
And that's not okay for any demographic out there. You hire based off of who's going to make you the most money, who has the best qualifications. That's the way hiring is. I mean, and if you want to apply that demographics hiring, I mean, you need to apply that nationwide. I mean, you take a look at the NFL or NBA or CEOs. I mean, you can't tell a private business who,
No, you can't. No, you can't.
It's not whoever's coming up with these demands. I'm sorry.
Well, so
you're missing some screws.
Based on the article, if you don't comply with the demands, they will sit outside your business and protest and offer the same things that you offer, but from a black retailer for a lower price right outside of your business.
Do you think that they could compete with prices of a corporation off the get-go?
Well, no, but so they're attacking small businesses in that community in Kentucky. not
Okay.
big
No,
corporations.
just okay. Yeah, they were accused of gentrifying the area, right?
Hmm.
Mm. So they're
Yeah,
going to.
the irony is they were after a Cuban business from a Cuban gentleman who escaped Cuba on a raft
So like
and got
somebody who was like really, really oppressed, like
who escaped socialism
yeah, yeah. I mean that's
and who
basically
is
what it is.
now being intimidated into adopting it all over again.
By this mafia, right? So he came over here. He left a an oppressive regime, you know, one who lined up homosexuals in the street and murdered them. Or, and there's a lot of other examples. He left that regime, that socialist authoritarian regime, to come to America to live the American dream. He's now a business owner, living the American dream, being threatened that his American dream will be taken from him because he is a person of color who opened a business in the wrong neighborhood. Is that pretty much what
And
we're
did
getting at?
not comply with the Black Lives Matter demands.
Hmm. So that's what it's kind of evolving because, like, I mean, I'm right there with you. You know, Black Lives Matter. You know, judicial reform matters, but that does not matter. Not in my opinion.
No, it's
That's not your avenue to approach. You know, that's people's livelihoods. It's how they feed their kids. Um, so, I mean, you have the right to protest, obviously, but
yeah, and you know, I personally am all for the protests. I mean,
yeah,
if you feel that there's an injustice against you or a group that you are involved with, by 100% protest all that you want. You know, demand things that you think are necessary for your cause. But at the same time, you can't just shake the businesses down.
mm,
At some point, they're going to come across the wrong people
yeah.
or the wrong businesses, and there's going to be violence.
Well, think about it. You keep doing that for weeks on ends, right? And I start losing profit, and it comes to the point where I'm having a hard time feeding my children. People are going to take irrational measures.
Yeah, and you got to remember what country we're in.
Yeah.
A lot of people will take matters into their own hands if they feel the need to. There's
Yeah, I mean,
multiple examples throughout history of Americans taking the law into their own hands.
absolutely. Absolutely. I
And
mean, you can't. I mean, that's why the Constitution was written, because the Articles of Confederation, you know, they couldn't stop uprisings. You know, I mean, it's embedded into our DNA. But I mean, take a look at Minneapolis. You know, they're defunding the police. Crime is skyrocketing,
mhm.
skyrocketing. What they put out, one of said, the article said, to willfully give up your
Oh
wallet
yeah.
and possessions.
Or yeah, be prepared
Be
to
prepared.
give up your car keys. Have your car keys out when you approach your vehicle, and have your wallet ready to be handed over because the police are not going to be able to help you.
Yeah, which is that. I mean, if you're paying for a service, that's like what Chop Chaz. They've changed their name. I mean, they're actively infringing on people's rights
For sure.
by barricading that blockade. Like, so they're actually infringing on other people's liberties. And I would expect my government to come to my aid if that was the case. But it took forever.
Well, in some parts of the country, you're allowed to arm yourself, and I mean, I think that's going to be the trend.
Absolutely, but I mean, it's just going to get more radical. I mean, people are going to start
Oh,
forming militias, and I mean, it's. I'm not saying that we're going to, you know, have another civil war, but we're dividing like we did back in antebellum before the Civil War. I mean, if it were to happen, the lines are being made right now,
oh, for sure. I mean, division's at an all-time high, no
all
doubt.
time high. What happens if Donald Trump wins the election in 2020?
I mean, people are going to be mad. People are going to riot. You know,
It's
I
going to,
think there's going to be violence no matter who wins. I mean, that's the trend, right? That's where we're going.
yeah, violence breeds violence, right? Yeah, no, it's crazy. And I mean, so we know, and we see this, we see that you know, the defunding of the police in these areas is causing violence to increase. We saw an article earlier about police union. I mean, not police union, a teachers union in California who are refusing to teach if their demands aren't met, and one of that demands is defunding the police.
Well, so what I've read is, so basically they're restructuring the definition of defund, right?
Yeah.
What the conversations I've had with progressives is, what they mean by defund is basically take a portion of the police budget and for example, instead of sending an officer to a domestic dispute, you send a social worker.
Would a social worker have done better with George Floyd? Maybe.
I don't know.
I mean, but I'm not, if you got a naked crackhead running down 95.
Well, no, it's not. The example that I was told was for mostly domestic disturbances. You would send a social worker, or you would send a social worker and a cop, and the social worker would be the first one to approach the suspect and hopefully de-escalate.
Right.
And in some ways, that's probably not a bad idea.
Yeah. Or you could absolutely do that. You could flip the coin too. You could also say the police force needs overhauled. They need harder training, higher standards to make to better people to come in, because right now nobody wants to be a cop. Nobody wants to be a cop. So people who are going to join to cops right now, a lot of them are just going to be people who have no other option. And those are not the people I want as police. I want people who want to be police officers, want to serve their community. That's the kind of police officer I want. And they need more training. They need more hands-on training. Like, when you're in the military, you practice those drills over and over and over again. Not just when you're done boot camp. You're just done. Like the police academy, you don't just stop right when you're done. Those skills need to be refined over and over and over again. They need to spend more time training.
Agreed. I mean, I think that if anything, you should increase the budget, increase their pay, I think, and provide more training. I mean, if they're paid more, if they're paid more, they're going to value their jobs more. You're going to get better applicants. You're going to get people that have other options instead of the people that have no options.
Yeah.
You understand?
Yeah.
If you provide more money, I think you're going to get better candidates.
That's also possible. And I mean, if you think about it, cops shooting other cops on accident's a thing too.
Yeah.
Which leads me to believe that they're skittish when these events happen, which is a direct result of not enough training.
Yeah.
Because muscle memory, when you're put in these drills, it becomes second nature. And I don't believe you would be as trigger happy if you had more training.
Yeah.
I think that's a good point.
So then I guess the teachers are never going to go back to school unless we defund the police. I mean,
I teach high school. We're starting online. We don't have a union like that here. That's conflicting on me morally, what they're doing, because they're threatening that they're not going to go back to work. And that's what tax money pays them to do. So if you're not going to go back to work, then they should either find somebody who will, or you get a nice receipt on your taxes and they don't get a paycheck anymore.
Well, how big is that union? I believe it's one of the largest, isn't it?
Yeah, it was big. I mean, it was based off like Los Angeles County, which is one of the biggest counties in the nation.
35,000 teachers.
35,000, right? I mean, that's giant. That's a lot of demands. I mean, we had a teachers protest here a couple years ago. It was about pay and more mental health access to the kids, which I was behind completely. I mean, that's some of them. That's the only help some of them kids get. I mean, shoot, some of them kids, that's the only meals they get is when they come to school.
Yeah.
But I mean, you're saying you're not going to teach until the police are defunded. Do you see what's happening in Minnesota and in these other places who've tried this? You're supposed to be an educator. You're supposed to follow the evidence, and the evidence does not say that is being beneficial right now.
Yeah, agreed. So they defund the police and defund charter schools. And then it says, the union, and I quote, police violence is a leading cause of death and trauma for Black people and is a serious public health and moral issue.
Is it a leading cause of death for African Americans?
No,
It's not.
it's
It's
not.
not.
No, the statistics would definitely refute that claim. I mean, and I'm not saying that it's not an issue for everyone.
Right.
Police brutality is obviously a large issue.
Yes, it is. I had a conversation with a progressive, and they wanted police out of schools because they said that was a gateway to having a record and a harder future. So I mean, of course I took the time to listen, but if you remember, we've been having a problem with school shootings. And obviously the police don't have any obligation to stop. I mean, they could sit outside and wait it out like they did at Florida, right? Where that happened? That's legally allowed. But if I can't carry a gun as a teacher and we're having a problem with school shootings, the last thing I want you to do is take my resource officer out of my building.
I agreed, yeah.
It's the last thing I want. Because I'm a sitting duck at that point in time. I'm not, that scares me. It scares me personally.
Well, why would it lead to kids having a record?
Well, because, for example, let's say you get into a fight in school. We've all been in fights in schools. And your resource officer's there. We didn't have a resource officer at the high school we went to.
No.
And then he's there. Instead of handling it in-house in the school, they can get involved, which can lead to legal action.
Okay. Well, I mean, if we got into a fist fight at school, your mom could easily press charges against me.
Absolutely. Right.
Yeah.
Or if I brought a dime bag of weed to school, I feel like they would call the police anyways.
Definitely.
They kind of have to.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's just not something I want taken out of my schools.
Agreed.
So we are under 100 days until the election. 100 days.
And still no debates, huh?
No debates. Apparently, the New York Times and CNN, surprising, both wrote articles about Joe Biden not needing to debate Donald Trump.
You can't even make that shit up, man.
You can't. So they're saying that Donald Trump's not a legitimate contender. He's the president of the United States. He's a legitimate contender.
He's not a contender for Biden to debate?
Yeah, like Joe Biden's, this whole platform, Joe Biden's, he's just superior. He's morally superior. He doesn't need to debate Donald Trump. Doesn't need to debate Donald Trump. I
guess the debates aren't mandatory then. I always thought that there was some kind of mandate that there had to be so many before an election. Am I wrong?
No, I mean, so the televised debates they have their own rules to it. Like you have to earn 15% of a vote population to be eligible to have a national television debate, which is the reason why the third parties aren't on it. And I mean, quite frankly, the big media companies, Fox, CNN, NBC, all they are is talking points for the two major parties anyways. So there's a reason why they probably don't want other candidates to participate in the debate, in my opinion. Yeah. But Joe Biden not debating, if he did not debate, I don't see any logical reason how you could tell me you could vote for him.
Well, personally, I think if he doesn't debate, he'll get more votes.
Well, but that's the thing is, like I really think Joe Biden is having a mental decline. I think, I mean, my father had he started getting memory issues with his neurological disease that he passed away from. My grandfather has dementia. My grandmother has Alzheimer's. I'm not saying that I'm not a medical expert, but I don't think Joe Biden's mental capacity is what it was when he was vice president with Barack Obama.
No, I think that's you can't refute that he's in mental decline. I mean, it's obvious, and I would love to see these two old men on a stage debating with each other.
Absolutely. Pay-per-view it, I mean,
it should be that. I would love to watch that.
and that's what I'm saying. Joe Biden has a lot to prove. I mean, a lot of the last polls already said 35 or 40% of people believe Joe Biden is in mental decline. I'm surprised that number was as low as it was, but he has to prove that he's not by debating.
Well, I mean, if he doesn't debate, that number's only going to go down because there's no evidence to show that he is in mental decline. If he keeps hiding in the basement, he'll ride it all the way out.
He's been real quiet. I mean, he does these little one-liners on Twitter, but I'm sure that's just his campaign staff that are doing that for him. So, I mean, he's been real quiet. And, I mean, there's all kinds of videos that float around on the internet of him doing weird stuff. And, I mean, Donald Trump's by no means a saint.
No. And, you know, listening to Donald Trump is hard to do.
It's very hard.
It's very hard because he's not a very eloquent speaker.
No.
And I prefer to just read what he says instead of listening to it because it's hard to pay attention to.
Yeah,
but that being said, Joe Biden, it doesn't know where he is half the time.
No, I believe that. Like, I believe that he has memory problems.
Oh, for sure.
And some of the things that he says, like, what was the quote? You're not black if you don't vote for me, or something like that.
You're not black if you don't vote for me, and poor kids are just as smart as white kids.
Right. You can't lump race everybody. There's poor people of every demographic.
Well, you know, the counter argument is, oh, well, Trump's a racist. You're voting for a racist.
Yeah, it's moral superiority. It's moral superior voting tactics. If you vote for Donald Trump and not a man who has mental decline, it's because you're a white nationalist.
Yep. I mean, that's the outcome there.
And I mean, it's just based off what you want. I mean, if you compare Barack Obama, George Bush, and Donald Trump, and you write down a list, I mean, Obama's the most elegant speaker out of all of them, by far.
For sure.
But he also dropped more bombs than anybody has in decades since Vietnam, I believe. So what's your priority, elegant speakers or dropping bombs at people's weddings?
Well, I think most people, well, I don't know. I think the left has gone away from being anti-war.
They definitely have.
Trump wanted to pull out of Syria. Everybody lost their minds. Trump wanted to pull troops out of Afghanistan. Everybody lost their minds. The Democrats and Republicans worked together to make those amendments in order to make it harder to pull troops out.
Yep. Cha-ching. Somebody's getting some money.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, what was that? Dick Cheney was on the chair of Halliburton, wasn't he?
Yes.
And we conveniently used them. I mean, when I was in Afghanistan, they were a contractor still. There's money. If you follow money trails, it leads you into the interesting paths. That's definitely for sure. And if Donald Trump was, if he just was, you know what, just pack up. We're coming out of the Middle East. I'd probably change my vote.
Oh yeah, so would I. But he doesn't have the power.
No, and I mean these are just senseless, endless wars. Just like he said when he was campaigning, marijuana. It's up to the states, but then you have Barr and as top of the executive branch with Trump, and they're like, no, we need to tighten up legal regulations on that. It's just it's such a flip flop that you can't even pay attention to it anymore.
Well, and he doesn't have the power. He doesn't have the power to legalize a Schedule I drug.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm sure he could make an executive order, but it would immediately go to court and it would be shot down.
Yeah, because by law, an executive order has to go off of a pre-existing law. Like when Trump banned bump stocks, it's going off of a pre-existing law on fully automatic weapons. That's how he got away with it, which is a whole conversation within its own, because I don't know how you can outlaw somebody's property without giving them compensation, but it's insane that this is the election that we're having in 2020 with the country. And it's no surprise that, I mean, the voting of the lesser of two evils has gotten us where we are today.
For sure.
I know you were a speaking of that, you were a pretty big advocate of the Burn Man.
I was, yeah.
He's been pretty quiet lately too.
Oh well, yeah. He's a sellout.
If
He sold out everything. So the guy never stood up for anything he believed in.
okay,
When punch came to shove,
Mhm.
with the DNC, he was walked all over.
Yeah.
Didn't stand up for anything he believed in, and that was the original reason why I liked him, was because of his ethics. And
Yeah.
then it just goes to show you that he's a career party man. The party before his constituents.
yeah,
You know.
yeah, even some conservatives liked him, and I mean, like 2016 was rigged against him for Hillary Clinton.
Oh, for sure.
Like that's a fact.
And it was rigged this way as well. I mean, the guy was tarnished throughout the media, and he never stood up to anyone.
Have you ever met anybody during the primaries who said, "I like Joe Biden"? That's who's got my vote.
No.
I've never come across anybody who I've come across a lot of people who like Bernie Sanders, but I've never met anybody who's like, yeah, Joe Biden for sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they know what they're going to get with Joe Biden.
Now, if he does come out and it is confirmed that he has mental decline, what does the DNC do? Who do they put in? Hillary Clinton?
I don't know. No, I don't think so.
No, that's past that.
Maybe Kumo.
Comrade Kumo? Yeah, maybe.
Maybe. I think they're going to do everything in their power to destroy that narrative.
Yeah.
And Biden will just be a Manchurian candidate.
He's just going to be a figurehead because I don't know if he has the mental capacity to run a country like that. I mean, granted, a president should always have cabinet members in their field of expertise who are smarter than the president so that they can make informed decisions. But would Joe Biden even remember what his cabinet man said? Like his cabinet member said?
No, he'll just be a talking head.
That's all he's going to be. That's it. That's it. There's nothing else about that. Well.
All right. Look at this.
All right. Is that the diabetic cat?
He's been sitting there crying the whole podcast.
What's he want?
Look at him.
Hi, Dad.
Oh, yeah.
Is that the one with diabetes and Down syndrome?
No.
That's not the one with Down syndrome?
No. The one with that one's in the window.
Oh, the Down syndrome cat's in the windows. Well,
yeah.
That'll be a good note to end on. If you want to see the Down syndrome cat, let us know. But other than that, thank you for tuning in to the Babble Boys podcast, and like us on Twitter. It's just at the Babble Boys, and give us some information on some things that you want us to cover. We are both educated in these fields that we're discussing, politics and history. We're both Army veterans. If you like what we have to say, subscribe and let us know. Thank you for tuning in.
All right, man. Till next time.
Yeah, man. All right.
See ya.